losing $2,236.84 in the month of April. Welcome on into a month recap. First month trading with a substantially larger account size, and I'll detail all of that here in this video. So what I want to do is, I think this is the first monthly recap on this channel, so I think maybe it's the second one. I think it might be the second one. But I want to detail what I do in these videos is I detail essentially what happened this month, and then we dive into the deeper analytics on TradeZella, and then we talk about kind of like what's going on, why the stats are like this, what we can improve upon, things I noticed, etc. And sometimes there's things to improve, sometimes there's not, and I think this is one of those months where there is actually something that I can take away and talk about in terms of improvements to be made. So let's start with the basics, and the basics are kind of what's in front of us. Then what I'll do is I'll pop off the screen, so I'll get out of the way, and then you'll be able to see kind of like more of the details once we dive into the details. So first things first, right, we lost $2,200. That's how much we're down this month specifically. If you go back to last month, which I can pull up right here, last month we made $1,366, and that was when I was trading with smaller sizing, but that was also off of one trade. Now, this month, so you can see that was one trade essentially. I was on two different accounts, but really one trade. Now, if you go back to the last trade recap video, what you're going to see is the last trade itself is down here, made over $3,000. So that's kind of like the sizing. Like if we have if we have one trade that loses, we'll lose around like $1.5 to $2,000, like 1.5 to 2K. And if we have a good trade that we're a winning trade, we'll probably make in the ballpark of $2.5 to $3,500, maybe $4, depending upon the length, the size of the trade, because some trades I'll take on bigger time frames, some trades I'll take on smaller time frames. And so I'll size smaller on the smaller time frames slightly, and then larger on the bigger time frames, because those trades take just longer to work. So that's kind of how that goes. But so essentially based off the sizing that I'm running with, we're kind of within we're within one trade, right? And I have one current trade open. They have earnings, I believe, from when I'm filming this video 2 weeks out. So I don't know if it's going to either hit take profit or stop. It's actually moved like halfway in my favor to take profit. So there's a better chance we hit take profit than stop at this point in time, based off what I see going on. But we do have 2 weeks until earnings, so I will not hold it through the earnings. And I'll probably want to sell it a couple days before, to be honest, if I, being on it, like if I'm being truly real, like we usually don't hold into usually the week of earnings, like I'm probably not holding the position. So I'm hoping next week maybe is the week, but we'll see. I guess we're in the middle of this week right now. So maybe not. Maybe it'll happen earlier next week for all we know. But I got about like a week and a half maybe of where hopefully we can get there. And if we can, great. And if not, we'll have to think about just taking it off or cutting it off prior to the earnings. But that's what's going on there. Trade expectancy, not surprising because we had a losing, month technically, but we did take 22 trades. Now, 22 trades, is it really 22 trades? Not really. You can kind of go through the recent trade list right here and kind of see. If I was to scroll through these, you see the last two trades specifically have three trades on the same ticker symbol, because I'm trading on 3 different accounts. So some of the trades I traded on 3 different accounts, some of the trades I traded on 2 accounts, and some of the trades I traded on 1 account. It just depends upon the situation. I haven't even checked. I just paid for the trade copier just recently. I probably should check if they have the capabilities or the compatibility of allowing me to utilize trade loss. So the problem I have with why I haven't had consistency on the trade copier has been trade locker on the trade copier that I'm using. You can't use it as like a parent account or like a master account. So you can only use it as a slave account. So what that means is that I need to have a master account, or a parent account, and then I could make trade locker a slave account, so I can have trade locker copy the trades off the master account from a different platform. And then it could do the trade. It could use the trade copier, but they don't have the ability for a trade locker account to be the master account and have other trade locker accounts be the slave accounts underneath the master account for whatever reason. Apparently it's coming soon. It's been coming soon the past 2 months. So I don't know. I can maybe it's already live as I'm speaking. So I'll ask for all I know. But that's why I haven't, had the consistency there, because normally what I would do is when I take a trade, it will like within a second automatically take the trade on the other accounts, and it will automatically size it accordingly based on the parameters I set ahead of time. So that's what I was doing when I wasn't using TradeLocker. I was using DX Trade. Then the platforms that are the prop firms at the time switched over to TradeLocker. So it was kind of like a jumbled mess. So that's what we got going on. I am trading on prop firm accounts technically, yes. The prop firm that I was using seemingly wanted to make up for kind of some of the shit that I was, giving them, and they kind of allowed me to switch into the proper accounts that made the most sense for me. So I am using them for now, but the plan is not for long. Take some payouts and ideally take payouts if we can stay profitable, and then move along. But it's been about 2 years now of consistently trading the same strategy, and I would say consistent profitability. You can go back through the trade recaps on this channel, and then you can go back to my other channel, my main personal channel, which I think should be linked below this in the description box. And you can see all the trades that I have taken since, I believe, August of 2023. And technically speaking, going back through my data, it was in late April of 2023 that I kind of flipped the switch. And from that point on, I've traded the same strategy since, and that's when I've had the most consistency, or just not even the most consistency. That's when I've been profitable since then, that I can like actually say, yes, like this is legit, not just like getting lucky and stuff. Maybe, I guess you could say getting lucky, although, depends. So our win rate was decent. Our average win-loss kind of thrown off. And this number, I don't put too much weight behind this month, because normally this number is substantially higher on winners than losers. But what I did do was earlier in the month, when I took some day trades here and there, I was trading on the larger account size. So the $200,000 account size. So, I had like one trade, and that trade would lose $3,000 because we got caught up in some of the tariff, like overnight gap downs on some swings. And it would lose like a lot of money on one trade. And I'm like, oh shit, So I didn't have like trades on smaller accounts to like make up for it almost. You know what I mean? In terms of lowering my average loser. Because let's say that I take a trade on 3 different accounts. One's a $200,000 account, one's a $25K account, one's a $10K account. Then what happens is the average, if it loses, the $200,000 account might lose $1,500. The $25,000 account might lose $300 or $200, and then the 10K might lose $85. But the average size of that ends up being substantially below $1,000. But this average loss is over 1.3 because I didn't take trades on, like I didn't copy the trades across all the accounts for every single trade this month. That's why it's kind of thrown off. But that'll even itself out over time. So just let that kind of, when you only have so many trades, it's going to be kind of wonky. That's the deal there. Same with the win rate. Like this, actually, I don't think was as good of a win rate as it seems. But technically, when I only traded on some of the losing trades earlier in the month that were larger, technically, they were made up from the winning trades that I took. As the month closed out, there was 2 winning trades I took, but those 2 winning trades were swing trades, and I did take technically trades on all 3 accounts on both of those 2 trades. So that ends up netting or logging in as 6 winning trades is how it goes in as, which is why this is going to look a lot better than it really was technically. So in a nutshell, that's what happened this month. But what I think, let me pop out of the way so we can kind of get into more of the details. I'll talk about the calendar, and then I'll dive into the charts, because I want to talk about the charts, and then I'll dive into the reports, the advanced reports and stuff, so we can see more of the details there. But did we just get logged out, dude? I just got logged out of TradeZella mid video, but we're back because I don't know, whatever. Now I have to edit the video. God damn it! I hate that. I hate having to do extra work, but sometimes it's okay. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, so month begins. If we go back to the beginning of this month, see a little more red, larger red numbers beginning of the month. What essentially kind of screwed me this month. If I go to the S&P, let me get this out of the way too so you can see the full screen. Okay. And there's a big takeaway that I have. So you go back to the beginning of the month and you get into this shit show right here, which was the fucking tariff. He literally pulls the sign out of behind the stage, and then the tariffs. It's the meme. I'll pop the meme on the screen. I'll put it up on the screen so you see, you get it. But that's literally what it was. It was literally he popped that sign up, and I was like, oh fuck. Not necessarily at the moment he popped it up, because I had no idea, to be honest. I actually didn't watch it. I had no idea that was even going to be a thing. I didn't even know. I've been hearing rumblings of the tariffs, and I assumed like this move down was like due to the rumblings prior to like the day that he dropped tariffs, but whatever, or like the whole sign and stuff. So we get this massive move down. At the time, I was in 2 swing trade longs. So these 2 trades I was in long. Maybe this one too, I think, honestly. But I was in these 2 trades long, and essentially like wiped me out overnight. And I did lose more. Like this trade was on target, which I lost $3K, which is much larger than what I would plan to risk on that trade. I was planning to risk less than $2,000. And then this over here was on CVS, was also a bigger loss. I was planning to risk about less than $2,000, and I lost 26. And then I took a day trade on the NASDAQ, and I lost 1,100. So that's, kind of fine, whatever. But essentially, these 2 trades, the swing trades there, like kind of bent me over off the bat. Like we're down 5.5K, just like that. And and it wasn't like, you can say I couldn't do anything about it, but like realistically, like, overnight gap downs, like that's a possibility. There could be news. Like, I don't know. When you swing trade, this is one of those things that could happen. What I will say though, is that in the grand scheme, based on how I manage my risk, even though we had some of the most insane moves to the downside, because I manage my risk in a way where like I don't overly size into trades, that does hurt me on the upside in terms of like, oh, well, you won't get funded as fast if you're profitable, or you won't make as much money on. Yeah, but then I also don't lose my fucking account when I have one bad trade, or when I get caught in a fucking massive dump, I won't lose my account. So as much as you can say whatever you want, dude. Say whatever you want, because all I know is that these could have been substantially worse, but they weren't. So they were worse than what they were planned to be, but they did not breach any of the rules of the accounts. They didn't breach any of the negatives, like, you can't lose more than a certain amount in a day. Didn't have that issue. And I never have. And yes, I lost more than I planned to, but it didn't kill me. Had those trades just been regular losses, I'd be about break even on the month. I think approximately, maybe, roughly. So cool, whatever. You know what I mean? It is what it is, and we kind of move on. But that's what happened to begin the month. What I will also say in terms of this is that on top of that, right, we had some of these big moves. If I go back in here, I did take a day trade here on the NASDAQ 100. You can go back to watch that recap earlier. I think I took a day trade over here short the Russell and the S&P 500. I think it was the same day, yeah. And so I was taking shots on these day trades earlier this month that essentially I was like, okay, like, yeah, we got caught in this long, we had some longs we were in that were looking okay, and then boom, market goes, sorry, or Trump goes, sorry, tariffs, and we get flipped. Nothing you can do about it, right? Because anything could happen. Like the Fed could say something, there could be some news overseas, like there could be anything can happen overnight. You can be in a company that just gets freaking screwed by some random, who knows what, that has nothing to do with earnings. Like you couldn't plan ahead for it unless you had insider information you didn't know, and it's going to happen. But outside of that, I was like, okay, we're going down so much. I kind of had a little bit of FOMO, like, yo, like we're getting some crazy moves. Like we should be shorting. And I honestly didn't see too many good short setups for my strategy, because a lot of these moves initially happen overnight, big gap downs. And then we had good drainers throughout the day with these bigger moves down intraday, like kind of bleeding out, but they weren't as clean. I took those trades on some of those downside days. And what I found, or not what I found, but like I ended up getting kind of burnt, because we'd get this like kind of move down, but it would be like this, and my strategy works best in an environment where we kind of do this and then break that. And that's what I like to, that's where I operate. I want to be trading here. And so in these situations, what ends up happening is I get in on the breakdown, and then we kind of push back up. I get stopped out up here, and then it goes down lower. So that's what I was noticing was happening. So it just didn't fit my style very well on some of these moves to the downside. And by not fitting my style very well, I just couldn't take advantage of it. So it was kind of like a double-edged sword there. It's like you're getting screwed on one side because you were long initially. Okay, we walk away from the longs, no more longs, right? Because we're out of the longs, no more setups that make sense anymore. Market's getting crushed. But now we're trying to short as well, like intraday, and those are also not working. So we're kind of getting double, screwed on both sides. And that was the story of the beginning of the month. So what I'm taking away though is that in times of higher volatility, my strategy does not operate super, super well. And so these are times where we don't have to trade. Like we don't have to do anything. You know what I'm saying? So now, it's a good example. These don't happen very often, these situations. And so some people can crush it in there. I personally found that I didn't do very well in there. And so I note that for next time. And my view is kind of also like, dude, we don't have to, like the cool thing about the strategy and the style I like to use is like, I don't have to trade I don't have to do it. I can just take a week off, take a month off, take, however long I want to take off, because when we do get it and we get a couple moves we get a couple like looks that look pretty good, we can crush and then we can walk away and not trade, especially now with a larger size accounts. You go out and you go and make 3K a couple of times, or you go and have a month like, for example, last month where you take one trade, but that trade now makes you 3-4K because it was such a nice trade. All right. As a side income, dude, I'm chilling. Like that's nice extra cash that I didn't have otherwise, and I'd rather not give it back to sit there and like spend more time. Like, I think it's crazy, right? It's like you can do this and take one trade, and then obviously there's time that goes into it in terms of looking at charts and stuff. So your dollars per hour is not like, it's not as simple as, oh, well, this trade took me, an hour or 20 minutes to enter and exit. So, or whatever. And I made, whatever that number is comes out to be per hour. Like, oh, it's so good. It's like, well, no, there's a lot of charting. There's a lot of time and viewing things and waiting, and watching for the setups to happen. But now you can automate things with alerts and stuff. So it gets easier. But like, why would you spend so much time? And what I find is sometimes the more time you spend and the more time you try to fight and figure things out, you end up losing or making less money. I at least do. So it's like you're spending more time and then you're destroying your dollar per hour or your ROI from a dollar per hour basis. So it's kind of funny sometimes how that works, but that's just what I found. So in times of high volatility, note to self going forward, haven't had one in a while, really like that. You'd have to go back to like, do I want to say COVID times? Like, I guess kind of, right, with how the VIX spiked up so high. We had some moves down, but I navigated some of these moves down, I think, pretty well over the past periods of time. So I didn't have issues there that I can recall, but this one I definitely did in terms of the strategy. It was just too aggressive, I think, of a move down. So it didn't allow for my strategy to work very well, which is it's fair. So that's good, or that's kind of the takeaway there. Let's dive into the reports tab. Where is it? It's right here. So let's dive into this and I can see a little bit more about what's going on. Here's all the stuff. Nothing crazy. I mean, obviously, yes, we know a lot of these numbers. Max drawdown this month was down $8,000. Got to get more used to that. It's possible, right? You can have a bunch of losing trades in a row and you could be down 8K. It's just getting used to the number. It's just a number, right? It's not like, okay, whatever. We can also be up 10K next month for all I know. Who knows what happens next month, So last May was actually one of my best months of last year, performance-wise. I think, not even I think, I'm very certain it was in terms of just like executions and stuff, not dollars maybe, but like executions. It was one of my best months. So who knows? Maybe it happens again. But average hold time was over a day. So I guess I should mention that as like not a caveat, but I do primarily swing trade. I will take day trades here and there, but I do primarily swing trades to just make sure, like, when I talk about these trades, I do these recaps. Like I take, my trades are not like, intraday as much. Sometimes I get an opportunity and I play them a lot less than I did last year just because the data told me to stay away, but I tend to swing trade a lot more. So if you're looking for a day trader, scalper, live trader, it's not me. I don't care to do that stuff. And the data just doesn't tell me to do it, so I'm not going to do it. All right, let's get into setups. What do we see this month? We took 10 bear flag setups. We had, now technically it's not 10, but it's with the copy trades, okay. 11 bull flags. So actually we had more bull flags, but some of those were earlier in the month before the whole tariff thing. So a good mix, a good blend of both, because as the month began, I was looking longs because we had no reason otherwise to think or really not much reason to think otherwise. I was pretty much playing inside of the beginning of the month. I was looking at us in here and I was like, okay, some stocks were still holding up very nicely near all-time highs and putting in very strong looks. Just got to find the area. And so I was like, I don't want to short the market right now. I see so many more long opportunities than short opportunities. And I saw many more long opportunities. So I was looking long. And then, of course, that changed to be looking maybe short. But we ended up losing more on the shorts. I lost over $3,000 on the shorts, and I lost $3,000 on a failed breakdown trade. I took one of those. That was on the target. That was a swing trade on target. So that was a long. And then on the bull flag trades, believe it or not, made over $4,200. So that was more so made back in the past 2 trades on what did I trade? Palantir and Netflix. So you can go back to watch those recaps. But that was kind of like, how we made up these numbers, which is not surprising to me. I didn't really log much of mistakes. I guess FOMO, I did log as one day, and that was a trade that I think it was on the Russell that I didn't necessarily need to take, or the S&P, I forget which one it was. It was the same. I traded both of them on the same day. And it was kind of just like, yeah, the market's going down and I'm missing out. And that's how I felt. Just simple as that. So I just like, this trade was actually not that good of a look, and technically was there, but like also just not that good of a look. And it was just really just driven by FOMO 100% on that. Here's more of the interesting stuff, I think, on this. So 1 day time frame, you can see we were profitable. We made about $2,000 on the 1 day. On the 1 week time frame, lost almost $4,000. It's kind of skewed based off a couple of trades, but yeah, the weekly time frames didn't work. I think those were the ones we got caught up in terms of pre-tariffs, then getting caught in the tariffs. 4 hour time frame was crushing this month, made $3,000. In the 5 minute time frame, we lost $3,200. Telling me again, day trades, nope. And I took more of them. See how like I took so many more of them, and I spent more time on these because like I'm watching them more. Whereas a 4 hour time frame, 1 week and 1 day, like I'm in it, and then like I'm kind of like, okay, like we can walk away, let it do its thing. We'll check in on it later, Whereas the 5 minute, I usually enter it and I'm watching it until it hits take profit or stop loss, because usually it will happen within an hour or two max. So yeah, it's like, it's one of those, this is just telling me more like, hey, like, dude, day trades just wasn't working. If that continues to be a recurring theme this year, I mean, I'll tell you, guess what? Next year, we're not going to be day trading at all. Like if we're on pace for that, then hey, we will not be day trading next year. I'll tell you that much, which I'm okay with. I'm totally okay with. I have no interest, which is great, to be honest, which means I have more time to screw off and do other things. Productive things that actually make me money, whether it's taking on more responsibilities work-wise, working with other companies, potentially. Like this year, I started working with a startup more consistently on like a weekly basis, and so there's other things that like, I could do with my time. Maybe I can go train for more ultra marathons, which is also something that I'm working on into next year, spend more time training, like spend more time doing other things. If that's, telling me, because then this stuff I can do from my phone. I can do all these 4 hour, 1 hour dailies. I can go at night or during the day, whenever I have time, I can go in, chart my levels off, set my alerts, and then enter my trades all on my phone anywhere at any time, as long as I have service, which you pretty much have everywhere nowadays, unless you're like deep in the woods, but or in a different country or whatever, who knows where. But yeah, so that's the month, dude. To be honest, nothing like insane, nothing that I'm like, oh my God, we have major problems, or oh my God, I'm so happy with it. Like, it's kind of like just, it is what it is. It's not, you can't really do a lot about sometimes some of these, the way things kind of shake out. So yeah, but I'm happy with where we're at in terms of the mental side of things and how we approach things. And I have to say, the first month, one thing people may ask is like, oh, how would, how does it go? Or how do you feel going from, the sizing that you were trading with prior? Oh man, my Siri's going off. Like the sizing that I was going with prior, and now changing that to like much larger sizing where like we lose thousands of dollars or make thousands of dollars with an S on trades, where in the past I would make maybe 1,000 or two max, not even in a month if it was a good month based off the sizing that I was using. But I look at it from a perspective of like, we pretty much had, 2 years almost of time to like prep for this. So when I now, and I look at these numbers and it legitimately doesn't make me, I don't bat an eye to them. I don't like, when I was into like $8,000 of drawdown at one point this month, maybe you could say, oh shit, I was getting a little bit, but like, not really. I was like, yeah, just kind of what happened. It could happen, what are you gonna do? So I don't think too much about it. I did think on the flip side, I'm like, well, actually, like, if we have a good month or two, start talking payouts. It's like, I'm not going to complain. But what I was also thinking too was from a perspective of these accounts, right? So let's say that you go in and you have to get funded on an account, right? How much money you have to make. So this is kind of what you have to be, ready for. So if I'm going to try to fund or get funded on a $200,000 account, I believe the first phase is you have to make 10%. So that means I have to make $20,000 on that account. And then, but I have two of those accounts. So technically that would be $40,000 across the two, right? Combined. So I have to make $40,000 on phase one to get those past phase one. And then on phase two, I think it's like 6%. So that's $12,000. So I'd have to make, which $12,000 on two accounts is 24. I have to make $64,000 across those two accounts, and I guess to get them both funded. Now they probably won't get funded at the same time, definitely not. If they both even do, who knows? But you have to so I'm like getting to $64,000, or I guess $32,000 on one of the accounts, right? Seems like a decent amount of chunk of change compared to what I'm used to. But then I think to myself, going further, let's say that takes 6 months. I don't know. Maybe it takes more. Maybe it takes 8. But then I think to myself, okay, well, if it takes you 8 months, fuck it. Let's say it takes you a year. Okay. And then you get funded and you're on that same pace. You're on the same pace. So now 2 years down the road, you could get $32,000 on one of the accounts worth of payouts. Maybe on two accounts, you get 64. Well, let's just go with one account. You get $32,000 of payouts. Now that's on one of the accounts. Technically, I would have more on the other accounts. So add a couple thousand to that, maybe $35,000, 38, or maybe closer to $40,000 in terms of all payouts. So 40 grand, right, from a side income from trading after going through all this stuff in a year. Now that's very conservative type of talk, I think. But that's like, would you, so the question you have to ask yourself is, would you sit back and wait or put in the work to get to that point, knowing that maybe in 2 years you can pull 40K out, maybe it happens faster. Maybe this is like a 6-month thing and, or maybe 8 months, I don't know, maybe 10 months. And it's like, okay, maybe in a year, or maybe it's like 16 months down the road or 20 months down the road, not 2 years down the road that you're pulling that much out. I don't know, but would you do it? And so that's the question that I gotta ask myself. And I sit back and I think about this a lot sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, 100%. Fuck yeah, I would, cause then that's just the starting block. And then it's like, well, then what happens 2 years after that? Like, well, now you probably take that cash you pulled out, put it in your own account, have no restrictions, maybe have more margin capabilities. And maybe that can, if at the same pace, you can make 60K the next year and then maybe 100K the year after that. And there are people out there that, don't get me wrong, that have scaled up substantially faster. I'm talking from a much more conservative level because that's how I tend to be with this stuff. But that's just me, that's just where I'm comfortable. And maybe if I was making substantially more money, or not even that, once I pay off the rest of my student loans, which I'm getting closer and closer to doing, I might think differently. I might be a little more willing to take on more risk, because I don't care. I'm making enough money to pay all my bills and everything. I don't have my loans anymore. So I have all this extra cash that I was used to paying out that I have sitting there that can fund my accounts, that if I do make a mistake or if I lose a little more money than I thought, I have it. Like, so I can be a bit more, or I can be a bit less conservative maybe, with the funds. I don't know, but that's just a thought that you have. So it's like, my view is like, it's that stair step, it's that progression. And like, yeah, maybe, it's not happening as fast as you thought once when you were 20 years old or 21 years old, whenever I really started trading, I guess. But if you told me that at 21, that by the time you're 30, you'll be trading with a size that, you essentially each trade is P&L swinging, $5,000 to $10,000, I'd be like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, oh yeah, like I'll go through that 10 years and 9 years, whatever it is. I don't know. I'm 26 right now, so I've got time, but it's over 30. But it's gonna be I was reading a book, and it was talking about the realities of life in a lot of ways, and how when you stop striving, when you reach a goal, and everything kind of crumbles away. Like all like the motivation, the drive, the happiness, the utility, all that you were getting from being on this path and striving towards some goal, it gets stripped away because you got the thing, or you did it, or you failed and you're not trying anymore, or you got to that point and you're done. Trading, in my eyes, is like, it never ends, because you can continue to scale little by little over time. And then you can scale into different aspects. You can go into investing. You can go into other avenues. You can go into like so many different avenues, and with the potential for like automation and trading bots and stuff down the road. I mean, it is pretty freaking cool. So with all of this stuff that's coming, it's like, I look at it as like, there's no finish line. There never will be. There's never a finish line. So you could continue to derive this like drive and motivation and utility, or whatever you want to call it, from this thing and this skill that you're trying to improve at over time, that you can never perfect, because you're going to lose. You're always going to have losing trades. You can't perfect it. But you think you could get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And that is what keeps you going. And that's what keeps this whole dream, this whole motivation alive. So when you get to like 1 million, and then you get to 10 million, and then like, like it never ends. Like there is no, once I get to this point, I'm happy. First off, I don't have a point like that. I don't feel like that's necessary, A. And so when I leave the end goal open-ended, I look at it into like this realm of infinity. And it's like, I don't really know where that ceiling is. It's unknown. Like there isn't one. So it's like, well, we're going to keep going, and we're going to go higher and higher and higher, hopefully. And then like, we'll kind of look down and go, holy shit, we're pretty high. And then we're going to kind of look up and go, wow, I don't see the end. So we're going to keep going and go, like, it's a cool thing. That was super long ramble, but sometimes I like to do that because maybe it's helpful to someone, or I can pull this video up in 5, 10, 20 years and be like, holy shit, look at this freaking guy, how stupid he was, or how whatever. I think that's pretty cool. I'll leave a link to TradeZella down below. Code TC10 will save you 10%, so you can track everything here easily if you want to. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Should be a recap on a trade, I think Walmart should be the next recap. We shall see what happens to that. Peace.